The wolf's growl tore through the courtyard like a clap of thunder, sending 3 guards stumbling back in panic. Blood stained the cobblestones where the last fool had tried to slip a chain around its neck. "Don't move," Commander Daxton barked, his hand pressed firmly against his torn sleeve. "Send for King Xander. Tell him his wolf has gone wild again." I pressed myself deeper into the shadows of the servants' alcove, clutching my basket of healing herbs against my chest. "Just pass through," I told myself. "Stay unseen. You're nobody." Just a healer's apprentice who had no business being in the inner courtyard. The massive wolf Vornak, they called him, stood at the center of the chaos, his silver coat gleaming like liquid moonlight, despite the blood matted into his shoulder. His eyes burned amber gold, wild with rage, and something deeper. Pain, perhaps, or memory. "Fetch the iron poles," someone shouted. "We'll pin him against the wall." "You'll lose your arm trying," another guard muttered. I should have left. Every instinct screamed at me to slip away before anyone noticed I'd witnessed the Alpha King's wolf refusing his handlers once again. But then Vornak turned, and our eyes met across the madness. Time seemed to stop. Those amber eyes locked with mine, and beneath the fury, I saw something impossible. Recognition. But I had never been this close to the Alpha King's companion before. I was nothing, nobody, just an apprentice who gathered herbs and mixed potions. Vornak took a step toward me. "Don't move, girl," Commander Daxton shouted. "He'll tear you apart." My body wouldn't obey. I stood frozen as the enormous wolf approached. His head lowered, muscles coiled like springs. The guards raised their weapons. "Please," I whispered. The word escaped without thought. "You're hurt." Vornak stopped mid-stride. His ears swiveled forward, his focus entirely on me. "Let me see," I heard myself say. My voice somehow steadied despite the rapid pounding of my heart. "I can help." What happened next sent gasps through the courtyard. The wolf, who had just savaged 3 trained guards who had never let anyone touch him in the 2 years since he'd appeared at the palace, slowly lowered himself to the ground. Not in threat, but in submission. He laid his massive head on his paws, eyes never leaving mine, and waited. The silence stretched so thick I could hear my own heartbeat. Then heavy and deliberate footsteps echoed from the palace entrance. "What is the meaning of this?" King Xander's voice died as he took into the scene, his untouchable wolf prostrate before a nobody healer's apprentice. And when his ice-blue eyes met mine, I knew my invisible life had just ended. "Step away from him." The Alpha King's voice carried the weight of absolute command, yet I couldn't move. Vornak had not broken eye contact, and something in those amber depths held me captive. "My lord," Commander Daxton stammered. "The girl. She spoke and he just... I can see what happened." King Xander stepped into the courtyard and the air around him seemed to bend. Where his twin brother King Soren ruled the eastern territories with cruel efficiency, Xander commanded the northern realm with cold precision. Tall, dark-haired, with features carved from winter itself, he was everything the stories claimed, beautiful and terrifying like a storm. "What are you?" His question sliced through the air. "No one, your majesty." I managed finally finding my voice. "Just an apprentice. I gather herbs for healer Elowen. No one tames Vornak." He moved closer and I caught his scent pine and iron with something wild beneath the royal exterior. "He's killed 6 men who tried to touch him," Xander remarked. "He won't even accept food from anyone but me. Not since he appeared 2 years ago." Vornak shifted in that moment, pressing his injured shoulder toward me with a soft whine. "He's hurt," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. "There's poison in the wound. Thornweed, if I'm not mistaken. It won't kill him, but it burns like acid." The king's eyes narrowed. "You can tell that from here." I couldn't explain that I'd always been able to sense poison, feel injury, like a shadow on my skin. That was the secret that had driven me from my village. The gift that marked me as either blessed or cursed, depending on who you asked. I can smell it. I lied. Then heal him. Your Majesty, Daxton protested. If she fails, she won't. The king's certainty sent a cold shiver down my spine. Will you, little healer? Swallowing hard, I knelt beside Vornak. His breath stirred my dark hair as I examined the wound. 3 deep, deliberate gashes, precise like a skilled hunter's strike. These weren't battle wounds. Who did this to you? I whispered, my fingers hovering above the torn flesh. Vornak's low growl rumbled through the courtyard, but it wasn't directed at me. His eyes were locked on something beyond the palace walls. Or someone. I worked quickly, pulling herbs from my basket. Moonbell for the poison silver leaf for healing, crushed ashwood bark to prevent infection. My hands moved without thought, guided by instinct older than memory. Where did you learn that technique? King Xander's voice came from directly behind me. I don't know. It just feels right. As I pressed the poultice to Vornak's wounds, the wolf shuddered. Then, as if by magic, the angry red inflammation began to fade. Within moments, the gashes started closing. Gasps echoed around us. Even King Xander stepped back. That's not possible, someone whispered. Not even the palace healers can work that fast. Vornak rose, shaking his coat. Then he did something that sent murmurs through the crowd. He pressed his massive head against my shoulder in unmistakable affection. You're coming with me, Xander declared. My heart stopped. Your Majesty, I have duties. Your duty is whatever I say it is. His eyes locked with mine, and beneath the icy exterior, I glimpsed curiosity, calculation, and something else that made my pulse race. Vornak hasn't accepted anyone since... He cut himself off abruptly. Since what? Pack your things. You'll have quarters in the palace tower. But I'm nobody, I protested. No, he said, studying me with an intensity that made me want to run. You're something else entirely, and I intend to find out what. As guards scrambled to escort me away, I caught a reflection in the palace window. For just a moment, my brown eyes seemed to flash gold, the same shade as Vornak's. But that was unthinkable. Wasn't it behind us, in the shadow of the eastern gate? A figure watched our departure with interest. The message would reach King Soren by nightfall. His brother's untouchable wolf had finally found someone it would protect, and wars had been started over less. The tower room they gave me was larger than my entire childhood home. Moonlight streamed through windows that faced the thornwood forest, and I couldn't shake the feeling that placing me here was deliberate, a cage with a view of freedom. You'll need proper clothing. The voice startled me. An elegant woman stood in my doorway, her silver hair crowned with a circle of black stones. I'm Elowin, the king's advisor, also his aunt, though he'd prefer you forget that familial connection. And she circled me like Fenris might circle prey, her violet eyes missing nothing. Village girl, herb knowledge, no formal training. Yet you did in minutes what our healers couldn't do in 2 years. She paused, curious. I've always been good with animals. Fenris isn't just an animal. Elowin's smile was sharp as winter ice. Surely you figured that out. Before I could respond, a long howl echoed through the night. My skin prickled with recognition. Vornak, he's calling for you, Elowin observed. He's never called for anyone, not even Xander. Why doesn't the king just let him go if he's so difficult? I asked. Let him go, Elowin laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Child Vornak isn't a pet. He's a guardian, a protector, bound by magic older than this kingdom. And apparently he's decided you're what needs protecting. Another howl, more insistent. My feet moved without permission, carrying me toward the door. The king won't like you wandering at night, Elowin warned. Then the king should control his wolf better. I found Vornak in the courtyard where we'd first met, but he wasn't alone. King Xander stood beside him, speaking in low tones. They both turned as I approached, and the similarity in their predatory focus made my breath catch. "He won't rest," Xander said. "He's been pacing since you left. Maybe he senses something's wrong." "Is something wrong?" The question held weight I didn't understand. Above us, clouds shifted, revealing the full moon. In that silvery glow, I saw something that made no sense. For just a heartbeat, Vornak's shadow didn't match his form. It grew larger, taking on a human shape. "Do you see it?" Xander's voice was soft, yet it carried an undeniable edge. It wasn't a question. "I don't understand." "Most can't. Most see only what their minds will allow." He moved closer and Vornak positioned himself between us, not threatening, but protective. "Of me," I murmured, the realization starting to sink in. "Your Majesty, what is Vornak really?" Xander studied me for a long moment, his gaze piercing. "You truly don't know, do you?" "I'm a healer's apprentice," I replied carefully. "You're a speaker." The words fell between us, heavy like a stone sinking into still water. "There hasn't been one in 3 generations. They thought the bloodline died out." "I don't know what that means." "It means—" A new voice cut through the night, "that my brother has been hiding something valuable." King Soren stepped from the shadows, his presence as commanding as Xander's, but wrong in some way. Where Xander was winter, Soren was fire. Where Xander's eyes were icy blue, Soren's were empty like the void. Vornak's growl rumbled deep in his chest, enough to shatter stone. "Control your beast, brother," Soren said smoothly, his tone mocking. "I'm here under treaty." Xander shot back, his hand moving to his sword. "The treaty doesn't allow night visits." "It does when property is in question." Soren's smile sent a chill down my spine. "The girl belongs to the eastern villages, my villages, which makes her mine." Something flickered in his eyes, not just cruelty, but something like fear. It was gone before I could be sure. "I belong to no one," I said, my voice firm. Soren's laugh was like poison. "Brave little speaker. But you bear the mark, don't you? Show them your wrist." Ice flooded my veins. The birthmark I had hidden all my life, the one that looked like a wolf's eye, was suddenly exposed. "That's what I thought," Soren said, his voice cold. "The last speaker was my grandmother's property. The bloodline belongs to the east." "You're coming home, little wolf whisperer." Vornak moved with lightning speed. I barely saw it. One moment Soren was standing, and the next he was sprawled on the cobblestones, Vornak's massive form looming over him. The wolf's teeth were mere inches from Soren's throat. In that moment of stillness, I heard Vornak's voice in my mind, clear as a bell. "Not her. Never her. I'll kill you first." "Call him off," Soren wheezed, but his eyes gleamed with triumph, not fear. "Or I'll have every Eastern soldier at your gates by dawn." "Vornak," I said softly. The wolf's muscles trembled with restraint, but his teeth remained bared over Soren's throat. "Please." Slowly, reluctantly, Vornak stepped back, positioning himself firmly between Soren and me, his meaning unmistakable. Soren stood brushing dirt from his black coat with calculated calm. "Interesting," he muttered, a sly grin on his lips. "The beast responds to her over you, brother. That must sting." "State your business and leave." Xander's voice was frosty, as cold as the winter he ruled. "I've already stated it." Soren's smile widened. "The girl bears the speaker's mark. By ancient law also states a speaker chooses their own path once awakened." Elowyn stepped forward, her voice like smoke curling through the air. "Has she been awakened, Soren?" Soren's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. "She spoke to the wolf." "That's communication, not awakening," he protested. "Don't twist the old words." Elowyn turned to me. "Show me your wrist, child." Reluctantly, I extended my arm. The birthmark I had hidden since childhood seemed to pulse in the moonlight, glowing faintly. A perfect wolf's eye in deep purple against my pale skin. Dormant, Elowen announced, her voice steady. The essence sleeps until it wakes. She's under no obligation to anyone. Elowen continued, her gaze fixed on me. Soren's eyes gleamed with malice. Then I'll wake it. You wouldn't dare. Xander stepped forward, his boots leaving a trail of frost on the ground. The awakening ritual requires consent or crisis. Soren's smile turned vicious. If she won't consent, I'm happy to provide the crisis. Vornak lunged again, but this time Soren was ready. He spoke a word in a language that scraped against reality itself, and Vornak froze mid-leap, suspended in the air like a grotesque sculpture. No! The word tore from my throat with force I didn't know I had. Energy raw and untamed erupted from me, shattering Soren's hold on Vornak. The wolf crashed to the ground, immediately recovering and positioning himself protectively in front of me. But something had shifted. I felt it deep in my bones. A door inside my mind cracked open, and through it, strange voices, whispered voices I couldn't fully understand. There, Soren said with a twisted grin. Crisis provided. She's awakening. The world tilted. Colors flared too bright, sounds cut through the air like knives. I could hear every heartbeat in the courtyard, feel every living thing within 100 yards. And beneath it all, Vornak's presence blazed in my mind like a bonfire, but there was something else, something darker. Another presence coiled tight around Vornak's essence, like chains. Something that felt like... You bound him. I gasped, staring at Xander in horror. Vornak isn't your companion. He's your prisoner. Xander's face went pale. You don't understand. I understand enough. The words left my mouth like a storm breaking free. Energy coursed through me, wild and uncontrollable. Release him. I can't. The admission seemed to physically pain him. The binding. If I break it without the proper ritual, it will kill us both. Us. I looked between him and Vornak, and suddenly, the truth slammed into me like a wall of ice. You're connected. I couldn't finish the thought. It was too much, too unfathomable. Brothers, Soren's voice cut through. Didn't you wonder why they look so alike? Why Vornak appeared exactly 2 years ago, the same night my youngest brother Thorn disappeared? Thorn. Elowen's voice was barely a whisper. You found him. I saved him. Xander snarled, his fists clenching. You cursed him. Soren shot back. Your own brother became a beast because he discovered your secret. What secret? I demanded, the questions bubbling to the surface. But as soon as I spoke, the awakening energy within me surged, and the answer came flooding in. Images, memories, flashes of Xander deep in the forest making pacts with creatures that shouldn't exist, seizing power with dark, twisted deals. The price of power, I whispered. You traded your brother's humanity for the throne. To stop Soren from taking both kingdoms. Xander's control shattered. Riven was dying, he admitted, poisoned by our dear brother's assassins. The forest spirits offered a choice. Let him die or bind him as a guardian to the crown. I chose to save him. You chose to enslave him, I said, my newfound strength crackling with rage. Vornak Thorn pressed closer to me, and through our bond I felt the truth. The binding was killing him, slowly, burying his human soul deeper with each passing day. Soon there would be only the wolf. But now you're here, Soren said, circling us like a vulture. A speaker can break any binding remake, any curse. The question is, will you free the wolf and lose the man forever? Or keep the binding and watch him fade away slowly? There's a third option, Elowen said softly. But it will require something from you, Zorael. Something you might not survive. Above us, storm clouds gathered suddenly, as if responding to the turmoil within me. Thunder rumbled, and from the distance a howl echoed, not a wolf, but something older, angrier, answering the call of my awakening. "Choose quickly," Soren warned, retreating toward the gates. "Because what you've awakened tonight, it's calling to things that have been asleep since the last speaker died. And trust me, little wolf whisperer, they're coming." Lightning split the sky, illuminating something that froze everyone in place. The thornwood forest was moving. The trees themselves were walking, advancing toward the palace. And leading them was a figure I recognized from childhood nightmares, the shadow wolf. The first of all shifters. The one even death couldn't claim. He had come for his descendant. He had come for Vornak. The shadow wolf stood at the edge of the forest, his form shifting between smoke and substance. His eyes, primordial and burning with colors that had no name, locked onto me. The walking trees stopped behind him, their branches creaking in anticipation. "Grandfather," Xander breathed, trembling. "You dare invoke that title?" The shadow wolf's voice was like wind through graveyards. "You who bound your own brother with chains of magic." Vornak Thorn pressed even closer to me, his form vibrating with conflicting emotions. Through our bond, I felt it all joy at seeing his ancestor's shame at his own imprisoned state and something deeper fear for me. "He'll take you," Riven's voice whispered in my mind. "Speakers are precious to the old ones. He'll claim you for the Shadow Realm." "I claim no one." The shadow wolf rumbled, his attention now fully on me. "Unlike my corrupted grandsons, I understand consent." He moved closer, and the temperature dropped sharply, as if winter had suddenly gripped the air. Where his massive paws touched the ground, frost spiraled outward, forming patterns that defied nature. "But you little speaker, you interest me. The last of your kind died, screaming betrayed by those she trusted. Will you share her fate?" "Not if I can help it," I said, surprised by my own calmness. The ancient being chuckled, a sound like bones breaking. "Brave. Your predecessor said the same." His form shifted, solidifying, slightly revealing features that were part wolf, part man, beautiful and terrifying. "Tell me, young speaker, what price would you pay to free my grandson?" "Don't," Xander warned from behind me, his voice tense. "You don't know what you're negotiating." "I know Vornak is dying," I shot back, my voice firm. I can feel his human side fading with every passing hour. "Clever girl." Soren's voice cut through from near the gates. "She already understands more than you do, brother." The shadow wolf circled us slowly, his eyes scanning the invisible bonds between Xander and Vornak. "The binding is complex. 3 layers. Flesh and crown. Break one wrong and both die. Break them in the wrong order and worse things happen. What could be worse than death?" I asked, heart pounding. "Existence as a mindless beast for eternity, hunting all you once loved." His eyes locked with mine. "Or would you prefer your wolf prince trapped forever in a body he cannot control?" Through our bond, I felt Vornak's terror at both possibilities. "There's another way," Elowen said quietly. "The transference." A heavy silence fell over the room. Even the walking trees seemed to hold their breath. "You know what that requires," the shadow wolf said. "I do," Elowen replied. She turned to me. "A speaker can transfer a binding from one vessel to another. You could take the crown bond from Xander. Free Vornak completely. Making yourself the wolf queen," Soren added with dark delight. "Bound to protect the northern throne forever." Or the shadow wolf said slowly. She could transfer all 3 bonds to herself temporarily. Hold them while we reshape them into something new. Something that doesn't destroy the host. "The last speaker who tried that exploded," Xander said flatly. "Literally. They found pieces of her across 3 kingdoms. She wasn't bound to the wolf first." The shadow wolf countered, his gaze steady. "This one already shares Vornak's essence. She might survive." "Might." The word hung in the air like a blade. "I'll do it." I said, my resolve hardening. Zorael, no! Xander moved forward, but Vornak blocked him with a menacing growl. It's not your choice, I told the king. It never was. The shadow wolf's smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed more nightmare than reality. Then we begin. But first, a truth you should know. His voice softened, his eyes narrowing. Speakers aren't random. The force follows bloodlines. Yes, but it only awakens when its counterpart appears. Counterpart. My heart skipped. Every speaker has a bonded guardian. Usually a wolf, but not always. One they're destined to either save or destroy. His gaze shifted to Vornak. Guess which one you found? My heart stopped. Destined. I breathed the pieces clicking into place. Why do you think he recognized you instantly? Why do you think you heard his call when no one else could? You've been connected since before birth. Waiting for this moment, I staggered back, my world tilting. That's beyond reason. I'm from the eastern villages. Vornak is northern royalty. Your mother fled north when you were 3. Soren's voice was smooth, like he had rehearsed this. After your father discovered what you were, she died at the border, but you disappeared. A cold chill swept over me, until a healer found a half-frozen child with no memory and a peculiar birthmark. The world around me spun memories I had buried long ago, flooding back. Fragments of a woman singing, running through snow, warmth fading as she pressed me into a hollow tree, whispering, "Hide, my little wolf speaker. Hide until he finds you." She knew. I whispered, barely able to speak. My mother knew what I was. She knew what you'd become, the shadow wolf corrected. Now choose. Take the bonds and risk everything, or let Vornak fade into the wolf forever. I looked at Vornak, at Thorn, and saw human eyes staring back from the wolf's face, pleading, not for freedom, but for me to save myself. Run. His voice echoed in my mind, desperation clear. Please. But I didn't move. Instead, I knelt beside him, placing my marked wrist against his neck. Together, or not at all. Strength erupted from the point of contact. It wasn't violent, but inevitable. Like the rising sun or the pull of the tide. I felt the bond snap from Xander. It shot through the air like visible chains of light, wrapping around my wrists, my throat, my heart. The pain was exquisite. Every nerve screamed as foreign magic flooded my body. The crown bond was cold authority demanding obedience. The flesh bond was wild hunger, animal instinct. But the spirit bond, that was the worst. Thorn's essence flooding into me. His memories, his pain, his love. Love through the agony, I felt it clearly. Not new, but timeless. Recognition of souls that had been searching for each other across lifetimes. Hold on, the shadow wolf commanded, his voice a deep growl. His form solidified fully, materializing for the first time. The reshaping begins now. But something was wrong. A fourth presence had entered the binding. Something that had been hiding in Soren's shadow, waiting. Did you really think, Soren laughed darkly, that I'd come here without insurance? The thing that emerged from his shadow wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It wasn't anything that belonged in the waking world. It was hunger given form, corruption made manifest, a void walker, the natural enemy of speakers. And it was reaching for me, its tentacles made of living darkness drawn to the force I had just absorbed. No. Thorn's form exploded with light, transforming mid-leap. But not into a man. What landed between me and the Void Walker was something else entirely. Half wolf, half human, all predator. The perfect fusion of both forms, beyond comprehension, yet magnificent. The shadow wolf smiled, his eyes glowing with approval. Interesting. She's already changing him. But I couldn't appreciate the transformation. The bonds were burning me from the inside out. The Voidwalker's presence was poisonous to a speaker's essence. Darkness crept into my vision as I heard Xander shout. Thorn's roar echoed through the chaos. Somewhere a horn sounded. The Eastern Army had arrived. I woke to find myself suspended between worlds. Not unconscious, not awake, but somewhere else. A realm of silver mist and whispered memories. The bonds I had absorbed pulsed through me like secondary heartbeats, each one pulling me in different directions. Zoriel. Thorn's voice, but not in my head. He stood before me in this strange space, neither wolf nor man, but pure essence. Beautiful, terrible, completely, utterly himself. Where are we? Inside the binding. Inside you, he said softly. He moved closer, and I could see through him to something beyond. Threads of light connected to countless points. You're holding all three bonds while they reshape. Your mind created this space to protect itself. How long? Time moves differently here. Moments or hours. I'm not sure. His translucent hand reached for my face, but he couldn't quite touch. You shouldn't have done this. You would have disappeared forever. Better that then. He stopped, his form flickering. They're fighting. In the real world. Can you feel it? I concentrated, and suddenly I could perceive the physical realm as though looking through water. The courtyard had turned into a battlefield. Xander wielded ice and shadow against the Voidwalker, while the Shadow Wolf kept the Eastern forces at bay by the gates. And Vornak, his human form, fought with savage grace, his hybrid shape protecting my unconscious body from every attack. He's magnificent, I breathed, watching the Wolfman tear through enemies. That's not me, Vornak said quietly. That's what you're making me. The bonds are changing, he continued, his voice steady. They're responding to your strength, your will. I'm becoming what you need. I need you free. You need a guardian. The speaker's essence requires it. He gestured to the threads surrounding us. Look closer. And then I saw it. My own essence weaving into his. Not binding, joining. The crown bond was dissolving. Its authority wasn't transferring to me. It was dissipating entirely. The flesh bond was strengthening, but it was changing from a chain to a bridge. And the spirit bond. We're merging, I gasped. Only if you allow it. You can still sever the connections. Free us both. What would happen to you? His smile was bittersweet. I'd be human again. Powerless. Mortal. But free. And you want that I want. He paused, his form solidifying with emotion. I want what I've wanted since the moment I saw you through Vornak's eyes. But that's not important. It's the only thing that's important. The mist around us swirled faster, the battle in the physical realm, intensifying. Soren had brought creatures of shadow beings that shouldn't exist in daylight. The Voidwalker was feeding on death, growing stronger with each fallen soldier. Choose quickly, Vornak urged. The longer you hold all three bonds unresolved, the more unstable they become. I reached up, my fingers finally meeting his for the first time in this strange space. Solid. Real. The moment we touched, memories flooded between us. His childhood. My hidden years. The first time he transformed. The night I healed my first dying patient. You were there. I realized the pieces falling into place. 3 years ago, when I was lost in the thornwood, the wolf that led me home. I couldn't let you die. His hand tightened around mine. Even cursed. Even mindless. Some part of me knew you were important. Through our joined hands, I felt the truth of the bonds. They weren't just magical chains. They were potential. Raw, unformed possibility waiting to be shaped. Together, I said, we reshape them together. That's not how it works. It is now. I pulled him closer, our forms blending at the edges. I am a speaker. You're the Shadow Wolf's descendant. Between us, we have enough strength to rewrite the rules. The silver mist turned gold. The bonds stopped pulling in different directions and began to spiral together, forming something new. Not a chain, but a choice. Not a curse, but a gift. Energy flooded through us. Through me. Unlike anything in the histories. We were remaking not just the binding, but the very nature of what it meant to be speaker and guardian. Unthinkable, the Shadow Wolf's voice echoed through the space. They're creating a soul bond. Stop them. Soren's voice was panicked. If they complete it, but it was too late. The moment our essences fully merged, the world exploded with light. I gasped back to consciousness, my body radiating power. Vornak stood beside me, still in his hybrid form, but different, more controlled, more himself. Our hands were clasped, and where we touched, light pulsed between us. The Void Walkers screamed a sound that shattered windows. Creatures of pure darkness couldn't stand against what we had become. Living light, bonded souls, the perfect fusion of speaker and guardian magic. Together, Vornak asked, his voice, rough but human despite his form. Together. We moved as one essence, flowing between us like breath. I spoke words in the old tongue I'd never learned, and Vornak shaped them into reality with claw and fang. The Void Walker tried to flee, but we were everywhere. Light in its darkness. Order in its chaos. With one final blood-curdling shriek, the Void Walker dissolved into nothingness. The Eastern forces faltered, their once dominant presence crumbling without Soren's shadow creatures. They were just soldiers facing the fury of the Shadow Wolf and a newly bonded pair whose strength was beyond comprehension. "Retreat!" someone screamed. They scattered like rats, leaving Soren standing alone in the middle of the courtyard. "This isn't over," he snarled. The old laws are dead." The Shadow Wolf stepped forward, fully solid beside us. "They've created something new, a bond of choice, not force. The first true partnership between speaker and wolf in 1,000 years. Soren's face twisted with rage. "The Eastern Kingdoms will never accept this." "They will," Elowyn said, appearing with a glowing scroll of binding magic in her hands. "Or they'll face the combined might of the North, the Shadow Realm, and the first soul-bonded pair in living memory." But I wasn't listening anymore. The creation of the bond had drained me completely. The world spun, my knees giving way beneath me. Vornak caught me, his form shifting back into human shape as he effortlessly lifted me. For the first time I saw his true face clearly. Sharp cheekbones, storm-gray eyes with gold flecks, midnight hair that fell past his shoulders. Beautiful in a wild, untamed way that mirrored his wolf nature. "I've got you," he murmured. Through our bond I felt the truth of his words. Not possession, partnership. Not ownership, but choice. "The bond," Xander said quietly, approaching slowly. "Is it complete?" Vornak answered without looking away from me. "We're bound by choice, not magic. She can release me any time." "But you won't," the Shadow Wolf said. It wasn't a question. I managed to shake my head. "Never." The ancient being nodded, turning to Soren. "Leave. Now. And if you ever threaten her again, you'll face not just the North, but every wolf in every realm. The speaker has returned." Soren fled without another word, though his retreat held more calculation than defeat. As the adrenaline began to fade, a truth struck me. Vornak was very much naked, having shredded his clothes during the transformation. Perhaps more casually than I intended, I added, "We should continue this inside with clothing." Before anyone could move, another horn sounded. Not eastern, not northern, but from the thornwood itself. The trees that had walked with the Shadow Wolf bowed in unison, their branches bending toward me. "What's happening?" I asked, confused. "They recognize you," the Shadow Wolf said, pride tinged in his primordial voice. The speaker has awakened fully. The forest acknowledges its new guardian. Through our bond, I felt Vornak's mixture of awe and concern. We had changed everything. The very nature of bonds, the balance of power, the fabric of magic itself. And somewhere deep inside I knew this was only the beginning. 3 days had passed since the creation of the soul bonds, and I still couldn't control the side effects. Every emotion I felt seemed to ripple through the palace like a physical force. My laughter made flowers bloom in winter. My frustration cracked windows. And my dreams brought primeval creatures from the thornwood crawling out of the shadows to peer at the speaker with curious, hungry eyes. "Focus," Elwyn instructed, placing another crystal before me. "Channel the excess energy into the stone." I tried. But the moment my fingers touched the crystal, it exploded in a shower of rainbow fragments. The 20th one today. "Perhaps we need a different approach," Vornak said from the doorway, wearing simple black clothing that somehow made him look even more dangerous than in his hybrid form. Through our bond, I felt his constant concern, his frustration that he couldn't help me. "The force isn't meant to be contained," I said, standing abruptly. "It feels wrong, like trying to breathe underwater." "Speakers of the past," Vornak began, but I interrupted him. "Didn't have soul bonds," I said. "We've created something unprecedented, and we're trying to control it with old methods." A knock interrupted us. Xander entered, his expression grave. "We have a problem." Through the windows I saw them. Ravens, hundreds of them, birds of death, circling the palace like vultures, but these weren't ordinary birds. Their eyes glowed sickly green, and wherever their shadows touched, the plants withered. "Plague birds. They've been extinct for 300 years, Xander confirmed, his voice grave. "Since the last speaker died." Understanding hit me like a cold wave. "They're drawn to my essence." "Not drawn," a new voice interrupted, cutting through the air. We all turned startled as a figure began to materialize from the shadows. A woman in robes that seemed to absorb the light, her face hidden beneath a deep hood. "Summoned," she said, her voice haunting, "by those who wish to corrupt or destroy the speaker's strength." "Who are you?" Vornak demanded, stepping protectively between us. The woman slowly lowered her hood, revealing a face that made my heart stop. She looked exactly like the portrait in the healer's hall. The last speaker. "Dead 3 centuries ago. I am Seraphina," she spoke softly. "Or rather, what remains of her. An echo preserved in the spaces between life and death, waiting for my successor to awaken." Her ghostly eyes locked onto mine. "We need to talk about what you've truly unleashed." Before anyone could speak, she waved her translucent hand. The world around us froze Xander midward, reaching for a weapon. Even the dust motes in the air were suspended. Only Vornak and I remained unfrozen, protected by our bond, the soul bond. Seraphina continued, her voice low and heavy. "It's not just unprecedented. It's apocalyptic. You've torn a hole in the fabric between realms. Every moment it exists, that tear widens." "You're lying," Vornak snarled, but I could feel his uncertainty through our bond. "Am I?" She gestured to the windows. "Look closer at those birds." I looked, and with my newly awakened sight, I saw the truth. The ravens weren't just corrupted. They were wrong, pieces of different realms stitched together into living impossibilities. The barriers between worlds were crumbling. "Your bond is too powerful for reality to contain," Seraphina said. "It will either reshape the world or destroy it. There must be a way to stabilize it," I insisted, my voice shaky. "There is," she replied, her expression filled with sorrow. "One of you must die." "No." Vornak and I said it in unison. "Then both worlds will collapse," she continued. "The human realm and the shadow realm will collide, creating chaos." She stopped, her form flickering as a new presence approached. "He's coming." "Who?" I asked, my voice trembling. The one who killed me. The collector. He feeds on speaker energy, she whispered. And you've just become the most powerful source in existence. The frozen world shattered back into motion. Seraphina's echo vanished, but her warning lingered. Immediate evacuation, Xander said, his voice sharp. The plague birds are just the beginning. As if summoned by his words, the temperature plummeted. Ice began to form on the windows, twisting into patterns that spelled words in the old tongue. Give her to me. He's here, I breathed. The palace shook. Stones that had stood for centuries cracked. Through our bond, I felt Vornek's wolf rise, ready for battle. Then came the voice, not heard, but felt. It vibrated through my bones and my soul. Little speaker, you've made yourself so bright, so easy to find. A figure stepped through the palace walls, if it were mist. Tall, gaunt, wrapped in chains made of captured souls. The collector. Where his feet touched the floor, aged centuries in seconds. 300 years I waited. He said, his voice like grinding stone. 300 years since I drained the last one. He raised his hand and I felt it, a pull on my very essence, trying to tear the energy from my body. But the soul bond reacted violently. Instead of my strength being drained, it exploded outward. Vornak transformed instantly, not into a wolf or a hybrid, but into something new. A creature of pure force and fury. Our combined essence created a barrier the collector couldn't breach. Interesting, he mused, his voice laced with amusement. You've bound yourself to a guardian. How quaint. From his robes he pulled out a crystal dark energy swirling inside. Do you know what this is? He asked, his tone casual. The essence of the last speaker, I whispered, my heart pounding. Your predecessor. She thought love would protect her too, he continued, his voice tinged with cruel amusement. The crystal pulsed, and Seraphina's echo reappeared, but wrong. Twisted, corrupted. Her silent screams reverberated through my mind. I kept her soul, the collector said with chilling detachment. Speakers are so rare, you see. I like to savor them. Rage surged through me, not just my own, but Thorn's as well, amplified by our bond. The windows of the palace exploded outward, the thornwood reacting to my fury. Roots burst through the floor, tendrils of thorns reaching out to ensnare the collector. But he just laughed. Yes. Show me that strength. Feed me your anger. Too late, I realized my mistake. He was feeding on my emotions, growing stronger with each burst of energy. Zorael, stop! Elowen's shout cut through the chaos. You're giving him what he wants. But I couldn't stop. The bond was a feedback loop. My anger feeding Thorn's wolf, his fury feeding mine. We were going to destroy everything. Then Xander did something unexpected. He drove his sword into the ground and spoke words I'd never heard before. Not the old tongue, something older, primordial. The shadows in the room responded, but not to attack. They wrapped around Thorn and me like a cooling blanket, dampening our rage. Shadow magic, the collector hissed. You dare use my own element against me. I learned from the best, Xander said coldly. From you, when you were my teacher. The revelation stunned everyone. Oh, didn't I mention, the collector said, feigning surprise. Young Xander here was my apprentice. How do you think he gained the knowledge to bind his own brother? I taught him everything. To stop you, Xander snarled. I learned your weaknesses. Did you? The collector moved faster than sight, suddenly holding Xander by the throat. Or did I let you think you did? Let him go, I screamed, force building inside me again. Make me little speaker. Show me the true extent of your bond. Unleash it all. I started to, but Thorn's voice, soft but insistent, stopped me. Wait. Look. I saw it then. Xander's hand hidden from the collector's view, making deliberate signals. A plan. Trust him, Thorn said, his voice full of quiet urgency. Be ready. Xander's eyes met mine, and he mouthed a single word. Now. He grabbed the crystal containing Seraphina's soul and shattered it against the collector's chest. The released essence exploded outward. 300 years of captured speaker strength suddenly free, but instead of dissipating it, rushed toward me, recognizing its successor. No! The collector screamed, but it was too late. Seraphina's energy merged with mine, not corrupting, but completing something deep inside me. The knowledge of centuries flooded through me. Every speaker who had lived, loved, and died. Their combined wisdom and force, and with it came understanding. You're not just a collector, I said, my voice echoing across realms. You're a failed speaker. One who corrupted his own essence, trying to live forever. The collector's face twisted in rage. I am eternal. I am. You're nothing. I said, the power of every speaker flowing through me. With that combined strength, I reached into his chest and pulled out his corrupted core. A withered thing that might once have been a soul. He crumbled to ash, centuries of corruption catching up to him in seconds. But even as he died, he laughed. You think you've won, the tear between worlds remains. The soul bond still threatens everything. You've only delayed the inevitable. His ashes scattered, but his words lingered, echoing in the silence. I collapsed, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of the power coursing through me. Thorn caught me, shifting back into his human form. The tear, I gasped, my breath catching. He was right. I can feel it growing. Through the shattered windows, we saw a crack in the sky itself. It spread an open wound in the fabric of reality. It revealed glimpses of the shadow realm beyond, a place where nightmares clawed at the edges. We'd won the battle, but in doing so we might have doomed the world. The tear in reality widened with every passing moment. From it, horrors seeped into our world, creatures of shadow and hunger, things that shouldn't exist under any sun. The palace had been evacuated, leaving only a few defenders and the few of us still scrambling for a solution. There has to be another way, I insisted, poring over ancient texts in the Shadow Wolf's personal archives. These volumes had materialized from smoke when Xander had learned of our crisis. Every source says the same thing, Elowen replied, exhaustion heavy in her voice. A soul bond can only be severed by death. She paused, reading further, or what Thorn demanded. He hadn't left my side since the collector's defeat, our bond humming with shared anxiety. Or transformation, Elowen said softly. Transformation so complete that the original souls no longer exist. She looked up. It's called the Phoenix Rite. Both participants essentially die and are reborn as something else entirely. That's still death, Xander said from where he was monitoring the tear's growth through a scrying mirror. No, the Shadow Wolf's voice rumbled, materializing beside us. His form was more solid than I'd ever seen it. It's evolution, but the risk. Tell us, I urged. You would enter the tear itself. Go to the place between worlds where reality is fluid. There you could reshape not just your bond, but the very nature of what speakers and guardians are. Close the tear from within by becoming something that bridges both realms naturally. But Thorn interjected already, knowing the answer. Most who enter that space never return. Reality without rules tends to dissolve consciousness, the Shadow Wolf explained. You could forget who you are, what you're trying to do. Become lost in infinite possibility. Through our bond, I felt Thorn's immediate decision. He would risk everything to save the world, to save me. But there was more than that. I also felt his deeper fear. Losing himself meant losing us. There's something else, I said, pieces falling into place in my mind. The collector said speakers are rare, but he didn't say why. What happened to them all? The Shadow Wolf's expression darkened. They evolved. Successful Phoenix Rites throughout history. Each pair that survived became something beyond mortal understanding. Guardians of reality itself. But the process... A scream interrupted him. Through the windows we saw the tear had doubled in size. Shadow creatures poured through in waves, held back only by Xander's ice barriers, and the palace guards fighting desperately. "We're out of time," I said, standing up. "We do it now." "Wait," a familiar voice called. Soren strode in, but not as the enemy we once knew. His arrogant bearing was gone, replaced with a desperate urgency. "Before you potentially destroy yourselves," he began, "you should know the truth." "We don't have time for your games," Xander snarled. "Not a game. A confession." Soren pulled out a timeless amulet. Its center, a fragment of crystallized starlight. "This belonged to the first speaker, your ancestral grandmother Zorael and mine." Everyone froze. "We're related," I breathed. "Cousins many times removed. The speaker bloodlines split centuries ago. One branch fled east, one west. I've known since I first saw your birthmark," he said, holding out the amulet. "This is why I wanted to claim you. Not for power, but for protection." The collector wasn't the only thing hunting speakers. Then why, I asked, my voice trembling. "Because I'm a fool who thought control meant safety," he admitted bitterly. "But watching you create something unthinkable, something beautiful and terrifying, I realized control is the opposite of what speakers need." The amulet pulsed with warm light as I touched it. Immediately I felt it. An anchor. A guide that could help us navigate the space between worlds. "It won't guarantee success," Soren said, his voice solemn. Soren warned. "But it might help you remember who you are in there." Another section of the sky cracked. The tear was spreading faster now, almost exponentially. "Thank you," I said simply, and I saw a flicker of surprise cross his face. Vornak took my hand. "Ready together, always." We made our way to the highest tower of the palace, where the tear loomed above us, stretching into the unknown. The shadow wolf Aloan, Xander, and even Soren followed their presence, a reminder that we were not alone in this. "If we don't return," I began, my voice faltering. "You will," Xander said firmly. "You have to." The shadow wolf stepped forward, his form solidifying as he touched both of our foreheads with his own. An ethereal pause. "Remember?" He said, his voice a low, echoing hum in that space. "Will and memory are the only real things. Hold tight to who you are, why you're here. And whatever you see, whatever tempts you, don't let go of each other." We nodded, the weight of his words settling into us like a quiet storm. Without hesitation, Vornak shifted into his hybrid form. I climbed onto his back, feeling our bond flare to life with shared purpose. With one powerful leap, we dove directly into the tear. Reality shattered. We tumbled through nothingness, but it was everything at once. Colors that didn't exist. Sounds that were also textures. Time flowing backward and forward like an endless loop. I saw infinite versions of ourselves. Realities where we never met, where we were enemies, or where we were already dead. The temptation to explore these possibilities was overwhelming. "Focus." Vornak's voice anchored me, cutting through the chaos. "Remember why we're here." The amulet pressed against my chest, burning with heat. Its light formed a small sphere of stability around us. In this formless space, I saw the truth of our bond. It wasn't a chain or a bridge. It was a living thing pulsing with its own heartbeat. And then I understood. Our bond was too dense, too powerful for a single reality to contain. It needs to exist across multiple dimensions simultaneously. I realized the flood of understanding rushing through me. Not break the bond, but stretch it across realities. Becoming guardians of the boundary itself, Vornak realized, his voice calm but filled with resolve. Neither fully human nor wolf. Neither fully in one world nor another. It will mean sacrifice, never fully belonging anywhere, always partially, in multiple realities. But it will also mean protecting all worlds, maintaining the balance the tear has disrupted. Choose the space. Whispered voices echoed around us. Seraphina's voice, the collector's voice, the voices of speakers long past. Evolve or dissolve. I felt Vornak's consciousness merge completely with mine. In this space, we no longer needed separate bodies or identities. We were one being with two aspects, perfect unity. Together we reached for the edges of the tear, not to close it, but to become it, to transform into living bridges between realms. The pain was indescribable. Every atom of our beings was pulled apart and rewoven. I felt myself dying and being reborn at the same time. The temptation to let go, to simply dissolve into peaceful nothingness, was overwhelming. But then I heard them. Voices from the mortal realm, Xander shouting orders, Elowen chanting protective spells, the shadow wolf howling, Soren surprisingly praying for our return. They were fighting for us, believing in us. And deeper through layers of reality, I heard more voices. Every person we had ever helped, every life touched by the speaker's essence. They needed us. Together, Vornak and I thought as one. We pulled ourselves back together, but not as we were. We reformed as something new. Still Zorael and Vornak, but also more. Guardians of the boundary. Existing simultaneously in multiple realities. Our bond no longer containing force, but distributing it safely across dimensions. The tear didn't close. It transformed, becoming a controlled gateway, a necessary valve that prevented reality from building pressure until it exploded. And we were its eternal guardians. When we emerged back into the mortal realm, everything had changed. I could see all dimensions at once, feel every realm's heartbeat. Vornak stood beside me, both wolf and man simultaneously existing in multiple forms at once. "You did it," the shadow wolf said, his voice filled with awe. And for the first time I hear awe in my voice. "You've become what speakers were always meant to be." But I barely heard him. Through my expanded consciousness, I felt it. Other tiers forming across the world, other places where reality grew thin. Our work had only just begun. 6 months later, I stood at the boundary between worlds, watching the sunrise paint the sky in colors that existed in 3 dimensions at once. This tear now stabilized into a gateway, overlooked a valley, where the thornwood met the eastern plains. It had become a pilgrimage site where beings from multiple realms gathered to witness the unthinkable made real. "You're brooding again," Vornak said, materializing beside me in his preferred form, mostly human, but with wolf eyes and slightly pointed ears, marks of his perpetual existence between shapes. Observing, I corrected, leaning into his warmth. "There's a difference." Through our evolved bond, I felt his amusement. We didn't need words anymore, but we used them anyway, holding on to the human habit, like a cherished memory. "The council wants an answer," he said gently. I sighed. The High Council of Realms, the new governing body formed after our transformation, had asked us to train others. Apparently, our success had awakened dormant speaker bloodlines across the world. Young people were manifesting abilities, bonding with guardian creatures and creating smaller tiers they couldn't control. "We can't teach what we've become," I said. It wasn't just skill or knowledge. It was choice, love, desperation. A perfect storm of circumstances. He took my hand, and where we touched, reality shimmered. "But we can teach them to find their own way." Through the gateway, I watched Xander approach from the mortal side. He'd changed too. The shadow magic no longer corrupted him, but refined him, making him the perfect king for this new age where realms intersected. Beside him walked Soren, the 2 brothers reconciled during the crisis. Their combined kingdoms had become the first truly integrated realm where humans and shadow beings coexisted. "The new speakers have arrived," Xander called out. 3 pairs all bonded in the last month. I saw them through multiple dimensional layers. So young, so frightened, so powerful. One pair was familiar human and wolf like us. Another was human and raven, their bond creating small storms wherever they walked. The third was most unusual, 2 humans whose speaker energies had bonded to each other, creating a loop that bent reality around them. "Bring them up," I said. As they climbed the crystalline stairs I'd formed from compressed reality, I remembered my first moments with Vornak back in that courtyard. How unthinkable it had all seemed. How terrified I'd been. "What do we tell them?" Vornak asked softly. I thought of Serafina's echo, the collector's corruption, the Shadow Wolf's timeless wisdom of all the speakers before us who had tried and failed, or succeeded, and vanished into legend. The truth, I decided. The strength isn't a gift or a curse. It's a choice. Bonds aren't chains, they're bridges. Sometimes saving the world means becoming something beyond it. The first pair reached us, a girl no older than 16, and her bonded wolf, both trembling with barely controlled force. "Lady Zorael," she whispered, "Lord Vornak, we're honored." "Just Zorel," I interrupted gently, "and this is Vornak. We're not lords or ladies anymore. We're—" I paused, looking at my partner, my other half, who existed across infinite realities with me. "We're guides," he finished, "and we're going to teach you not to become us, but to become something entirely your own." The girl's eyes widened with hope. In the distance, another tear began to form. I felt it like a whisper across dimensions. Not a wound, but a doorway waiting for its guardians to arrive. "Come," I said, gesturing to all three pairs, "let's begin." As we walked toward the new tear, I heard the Shadow Wolf's howl echo across realms: approval, pride, and promise. The age of isolated speakers was over. The time of connected guardians, bridging all realities, had begun. And somewhere in the space between heartbeats, between dimensions, between wolf and woman, I smiled. We had become unthinkable, Vornak and I. And now we would teach others to do the same. The story ended where it began, with a choice to help, to reach out despite fear, to speak when silence would have been easier. But this time we weren't alone. We never would be again.